Mitsubishi is a group of companies. The wider family of Mitsubishi is a group of companies formed since 1946. The significance of 1946, of course, is that was the end of the Second World War, and the large Japanese conglomerates were split up at that time. There's about 40 odd companies there who use either the Mitsubishi name explicitly or are part of the Mitsubishi wider family. Some of them might surprise you, actually. Bank of Tokyo is in there. Nikon Cameras. Mitsubishi Motors, of course, a completely separate entity, and of course Mitsubishi Electric ourselves. You'll see it's a worldwide organisation, lots of blue chip companies as part of that. Technologies range from satellite space technologies through our own automation technologies, air conditioning, heating products, right down to consumer products in Japan. They still obviously sell white goods in Japan. We tend not to do that in Europe. So that's a little bit of background, and of course as a responsible company, we're very aware of our corporate social responsibilities and our responsibilities to the environment. And this is our vision for how we can help the environment over the next few years. We have a thing called Environmental Vision 2021, and our goal is to reduce our carbon footprint by 30%. But that also, it doesn't just include how we produce, it's the technologies we produce, because a lot of our technologies are used as energy-saving devices in their own right. And also things like our logistics, how we ship the product around the world. So that's a very, very important event and strategy for us, and that permeates throughout all of the divisions within this building, not just our own. But what we really want to know, the theme of today, is our presence in Asia and the surrounding countries. So this is an indication of where we sit in terms of the general Asian area and the ASEAN countries. So that's the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which include things like Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, etc. So basically that's a map of everything outside of Japan in the region, and you'll see various entities there, sales offices, technical centres, production bases outside of Japan itself. So you can see we're very well represented in this region, as you would expect from the leading automation supplier for Asia. So if we drill into that a little bit, if we look at Japan itself, from our point of view, from the automation systems point of view, we have 3 main factories and a Tokyo headquarters. So that's where the majority of the production of our products takes place. We also have production facilities in China. Some of these are relatively recent, in the last 2 years, some of these. So again, in terms of China, we have very good representation. Obviously, as a supplier of automation solutions, we range from anything from a low voltage motor contactor or switch or breaker, through PLCs, drives, HMIs, to robotics, and of course complementary software solutions to integrate all that together. So we do have the full scope of automation products. In terms of where we see our key strengths, it's all about the technology for us. We've been at the forefront of technology in this field for many, many years. We put a lot of investment back into R&D, and our watchword, if you like, is quality. We pride ourselves in the fact that when we release a product in the UK, we're very confident that we won't have any product issues in terms of reliability and recalls and this sort of thing. Some of our competitors aren't quite as well placed as that, but it's not a very sexy thing to talk about quality when you're trying to extol that as a virtue of your products. But actually, I think these days, where people are much more concerned about maintaining their assets, their production equipment over many years rather than just replace. When we came through the recessions of the recent years, I think people stopped replacing machine lines, production lines, and started extending the life of that asset. And therefore, quality and reliability is a big factor there, as is legacy support. Another thing that we we pride ourselves in, as products evolve, which they should do over generations, the technology changes, but what we're very good at is maintaining a link back to the old system. So our legacy support is extremely good. A couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess now, we withdrew a product which was the large format PLC that had been in production and use since the early 80s. It was 27 years in production and use. We didn't force a step change on our customers. We actually made lots of adapters, physical adapters, hardware adapters, so that we could retain the existing I/O schemes and I/O modules and interface to the new processor technologies. So it allowed our customers to make a stepped approach to replacing their legacy systems, and that's typical of the way we tend to approach things. And these days, customers talk about the whole life costs of a machine. So it's not just the initial price they pay for that machine from a machine builder, it's how much it costs to maintain and use that equipment over its life. Most of the times now when we're talking to food companies or water companies, they expect an asset, whatever that asset is, to last for 15 years. And somebody once told me that the initial cost of that plant, machine, or whatever it may be, represents only 15% of its total whole life cost. So maintenance, training, legacy support is a very important aspect in that equation. Okay. So John touched on the network marketplace in Asia, and I'll sort of look a little bit at the total automation market in that region. Now that's, the percentages are always interesting, but these are sort of orders of magnitude that we're talking about in terms of the market share of the various countries that represent this area in the world. Now it's estimated that total market there is around £50 billion. So if you work that with those sort of percentages, that means China's worth £22 billion, Japan 17, and the rest make up the other 11 billion. But it's just, you can see why everyone is attracted to China. There's a significant automation market to be had there. And that, if you were answering the question why partner with Mitsubishi, if a machine builder in the UK wants to go and sell a machine into these areas, partnering with Mitsubishi, adopting CCLink is a good idea. Before I move on to this, I mean, we obviously deal with a lot of UK machine builders and machine builders in Europe if you look outside the UK. And John showed a slide earlier where we were looking at the network preferences in Europe and Asia and America. And they basically line up with the 3 major automation players in Europe, America and Asia. And often a UK builder may sell his machines into Europe, and maybe Mitsubishi is not his first choice automation supplier for that. But we've been approached by many companies that I guess in the past we've struggled to have conversations with, but are now looking at the Asian market as a place where they should be looking to sell their machines, and they're talking to us about having a Mitsubishi flavour of their machine or solution. So it's very good for us, and it's obviously something we can help with. But a year ago we ran some seminars of our own based on a UK machine builder theme. Part of that day was about this opportunity in Asia, and the other part was a technology-based, machine control activity. But we had 2 guest companies at that event. One was UKTI, UK Trade and Investment, and Bob Dokes here, there he is over there from UKTI, and the other was the China-Britain Business Council, and they talked about how their role in helping UK-based business to infiltrate is the wrong word, I guess, but to make use of the opportunities in here. So UKTI is a government-backed UK business, and they look at the export as a whole across the world, not just in this part of the world. And so that's an organisation that people should be talking to. I mentioned the China-Britain Business Council, obviously focused more on China, affiliated to the UKTI. And for UK machine builders, there are various associations, but PPMA is a popular organisation for UK machine builders, Processing and Packaging Machine Association, and they look at it in a slightly different way, more of a practical way in some respects. What they've done is to set up an office or offices in China, which they man with locally based staff, and then they offer their members a service which they call the Dragon service, and that allows, if a company's thinking, shall we try this market, we need to dip our toe in the water. Can we do a feasibility study on whether our machine is going to sell into China? Obviously, to do that independently is quite an undertaking and lots of investment. So what the PPMA do for their members is they make that office and staff available to that company for maybe a 6-month period, and it allows them to go out there, check the marketplace out, and see if it really is for them. So that's an excellent service that they offer. So there's lots, if you look at those 3 organisations in the UK, there's lots of advice that can be had for UK companies who are thinking of moving into this sort of area. Because obviously there's a lot of cultural differences. You know, China-Britain Council, the Business Council will talk about that, and the way they do business, especially in China, is slightly different to the way we tend to do it in Europe. So outside of that, of course, and coming back to us, one of the things, I want to borrow a couple of quotes, one of which was Bob's from the seminar that we had, and he was talking about, it's not just about selling your machine or solution into this region, it's what happens after that. Your after-sales service has got to be in place. You know, and thinking about it from a practical point of view, if you send a machine or a solution to that part of the world, how are you going to service it? What are the logistics involved in actually providing that service? So those were the sort of things that they were raising as concerns and issues that people should be looking at. And of course we come back into play there because of course we've got a global service network. This is a global brochure showing you offices around the world, but as you see, it's been in Japanese, it's in English, it's printed in various different languages, and it shows the worldwide network of Mitsubishi service. And that again involves technical centres, sales offices, repair centres scattered around the world, which is all very well, but you need some coordination. And of course, for UK-based companies, we take the responsibility through our system service programme to coordinate that activity for customers, or to at least make the links for customers to operate within these various countries that are local offices situated there. So that's something that we, Mitsubishi UK, can help with in terms of encouraging UK businesses to make this step. Okay, so again, we're talking about CCLink as a technology, and it's very true that obviously, as John's mentioned, that to get into these markets, it's best to be back in the leading network that's been adopted in that area. Again, this is something that we've talked about. Mitsubishi were a founder member of this. As most automation networks started out as a manufacturer's network. If you think of Profibus, that started with Siemens, DeviceNet with Allen Bradley, Rockwell, and CCLink, not surprisingly, started out as a Mitsubishi network. What happens in the evolution of that is then it becomes an open network, so the protocols are made available, and third-party devices become able to connect to it. Now that's good actually from a user's point of view, because fundamentally the technology that underpins the network, it was developed as part of a product range, and that's always a good peace of mind activity for people who use it, whichever flavour you alight on. Again, John had this slide, but I've changed a little bit because I put Mitsubishi PLCs on top of this one, so it's his little bland boxes, because he has to be open, were there, and I've just made them Mitsubishi ones. But he talked a little bit about that technology. One of the things that separates CCLink technology from some of the other field buses is that we always get this speed. The speed of the network is constant regardless of distance. Now, a lot of the other field buses, the further you go on your network, the slower you go on your network, because of the technologies that they're based on. So that's a distinct advantage of CCLink, a disadvantage of their networks. Often on networks there is some sort of configuration file that needs to accompany the slave device, which has to be loaded into the network master module in order for the master module to recognize the slave device on the network. And that's a great theory, it's not a problem, but if I've got a slave device and I've got a configuration file and the two are out of date, so this configuration file is the old configuration file and the product is now a generation up, it won't connect. And that's a problem. With CCLink, we don't have that problem. Everything on CCLink is parameterized, and there are no configuration files as such to worry about. So you can basically plug your device on, and it sees it as a device on the network, and it's very easy to set up and communicate. Within the family, John touched on this again, we have things like a safety network that works with the Mitsubishi Safety PLC, so that's a dedicated CCLink network for safety devices, which comes with all the accreditation and validation that you need for that. So as a network architecture, from a Mitsubishi perspective, that would be our preferred solution, because we achieve everything that we need to achieve in the topology of a typical plant control. The CCLink IE control level is peer-to-peer, and everything below that, on some level, is a peer-to-slave activity. And we can achieve everything we need to achieve very fast, and very large amounts of data passed around on that network topology. In the UK, we probably sell 3 or 4 times as many CCLink master modules than we do any other network. And some of that is because our market tends to be open a little bit more here. We don't have a UK automation manufacturer. If you're operating in mainland Europe, then obviously Siemens, by and large, is a strong player because of the strength of the German market. We don't tend to have that, so it's a lot more open for us. So various industry sectors adopt various open networks. We are able to dictate is the wrong word again, but help our customers make the right choice in many applications, and our preferred choice is always CCLink. Having said that, of course, we have to operate in the real world, and we therefore need interfaces to other networks. And it's a question of how you achieve communications to other networks. Well, one way is to use our PLC as a gateway, because we have interfaces to all of the major network, open networks that we have in the industrial automation sector. And we achieve that by Mitsubishi manufactured modules. We don't have gateway devices. Lots of people will sell you a gateway from one network to another, but that is seen by a lot of customers as a black box solution, whereas they want to really buy their network interfaces from the manufacturer of the automation platform. So as I said, they're all connected and all available to connect from our platform. A number of other concerns worry UK manufacturers of machines or solutions when they deal in this part of the world, especially China. And that is, of course, the IPR issue and how good the Chinese are at copying machines and solutions from other countries. And that's something that has to be looked at, and there are ways around that. Obviously, you also need things like remote access. If you're going to dial into your machine from the UK, you need to be able to do that in a very secure basis. And the other thing, of course, is the threat of cyber security. Now, that's an interesting topic, because until recently, that was seen as an IT issue. And, of course, a few years ago, we had a thing called the Stuxnet virus, which may be new to you, maybe not. But basically, this was a virus that was a very sophisticated virus. There's been various rumours and conspiracy theories about where it originated, but it manifested itself in an Iranian nuclear plant, and it changed the landscape in terms of what people thought about security, because now the way that infiltrated the automation platform was to do it underneath the IT layer. So it did it by often when we had the network topology slide up just now, they're often gateway PCs that sit above the immediate control in the plant. And they are there for visualization, SCADA, databases, etc., that then communicate up into the business levels of any company. Those gateway PCs tend to be the domain of the engineering organisation, the engineering groups. And so the IT people sort of ignore them to a large extent. And of course the Stuxnet virus targeted that layer and came in via USB stick or CD or something, and just lay there in that layer until someone changed the PLC program and downloaded the virus. And then it changed fundamentally the operation of the plant. Now that, all of a sudden, that changed everybody's perception of where the threat was. Because generally speaking, a good business has a very good IT security level at the top of the business, because the perceived threat is coming in from the outside into our business level systems. But if you think about it, if you can disrupt production, whether that be a water company, you know, water company's biggest fear is not being able to supply water, it's actually supplying contaminated water. So, you know, that changed the landscape. And the reason I mention this is that CCLink is particularly good in terms of security. It is, although it's an Ethernet-based network, and is rightly called an Ethernet-based network, Ethernet is a very generic term, because what has to follow the word Ethernet is what protocol is running behind it. And CCLink is not an IP-addressed network. We're very used to IP addresses with our computers in the office. We know what the IP address is, and that identifies that device on the network in a unique way. But it's also a Windows-based activity. So if we look at our cyber criminals, they always go for the easy hit. So they go for technology they understand. So they understand IP-based networks, so they're more likely to hit it, if you like. If it's not an IP-based network, they can still hit it, but it's less likely that they'll bother. That's the theory. So it is very good from that point of view, and my message really is in all of these aspects here, IPR protection, cybersecurity, secure remote access, we have solutions that we can implement to alleviate those particular issues. Okay, so I think that's about me. And, you know, the message from me is, you know, we're the market leader in Asia. We've got local understanding, but we have global presence.